yes, I know what death is like. Yes, I know what cancer's like. I know what addiction's like. I know what it's like if you don't have a regular income, because I don't. And all of those things are very helpful when you're talking to people just like you who are also going through those things and think, I better not buy the big packet of toilet paper. I'll just get the couple because I can't really afford to get that. You know.
I want to
That was a nice example. The toilet paper one, wasn't it? That illustrated my point.
You had to pull
nicely.
something out, and yeah.
Welcome to a piece of cake. Is that the jingle?
That's it.
I didn't know how to start.
It's Tuesday, 5 p.m. Tuesday, day 2, episode 3. I'm not going to do it every day. Today on the podcast, cake, a piece of cake in full, the full piece, the full cake. I don't know.
Wow, we are nailing this.
You posted something on Instagram last night.
This is seamless. It's quite amazing we haven't already done this because we are so good at it.
Can I continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've got a beast on my back.
Well,
exactly.
Get to the point. That's what yeah. So you posted on Instagram last night a story of the electoral map, the boundaries, and you had a little marker on the outside that said, I was born here. And I can't actually remember what it was.
Thanks for taking the time to. Thanks.
Thanks.
Well, I was posting the electoral map because it's huge, and I thought people would like to know how much bigger it is than the state boundary. And then someone messaged me saying, that's the wrong map, idiot hole. And I said, I knew that. So then I reposted it.
Sorry.
Because it's changed.
You posted the wrong map.
Why would it change every year? I don't know that.
Well, yeah. Well, that's a
Why
that's
the
a thing.
hell would they change the boundary every year?
Just keep people on their toes.
4 roads different.
I know. It is a bit crazy. Okay, but
that sounds like jobs for the boys. Anyway, I was born in Armidale.
Yes. And so I saw that and I was like, I just realised I didn't know nothing about you. I thought you were born in Mullaloo. I thought you were from the northern suburbs.
Both of those things can be true.
Yeah. So you were born in a hospital in Armidale. Is what we're going with.
Very presumptuous of you. Yes. I was born in, I don't know why. I can't answer that question.
Mum and Dad.
It's not convenient for Mullaloo. It was a long time ago. Maybe that was the only hospital. Yeah. That is also not true.
Well, it got me thinking about the fact that like you and I are friends, have been friends for a while, but we kind of met. I mean, I don't know how we met for a start.
No, me neither.
It's not a good story because it's just one of those ones where we slowly orbited closer and closer to each other and then ultimately became friends. I feel like I have this memory of like the first proper conversation you and I had, and it was outside Il Lido in Cottesloe, where we'd obviously been for a swim and were having a coffee with our respective partners.
I was just walking past.
Right. Okay. Excuse me more. And anyway, we bumped into each other and we had this we sort of knew who each other were. We'd crossed paths and we were like, oh, you, and then we launched into this big convo about, all the ways in which we hate the world.
In a positive way.
Obviously. Super constructive and passionate. And that kind of kicked off our friendship. And then I feel like we never went back. We entered at global level and we never went back to bottom level.
We went straight to how do we fix the world?
Correct. Yeah.
And not what sort of coffee do you like?
Correct. And so I thought that I could interview you about your life today, and then the audience could get to know you as I get to know you. Does that sound fun?
You're welcome. Or okay, let's go in. Let's step in. This is my crib or something. I don't know. Okay, go. Oh, you want me to start?
No, I mean, okay. I've got the questions.
Okay.
I mean, let's go back to Mullaloo then. What was happening out there when you were...
That's I
don't know. Set the scene. What year is it? You're born.
I was born... My mum and dad moved to Australia from the United Kingdom in the late 70s. And they moved to Mullaloo, I believe, because they knew someone that was in that area. And at that time, Mullaloo was just beach shacks and literally brumbies in the dunes. It was right on the edge of town. That was the tip of the urban sprawl at that point. And I remember Dad saying, "Oh, we had the choice between the house we bought or one on the front opposite the beach, but oof, that just had dark brown bricks or something like that." And I was like, Dad, I would be a millionaire now if you'd bought that one. So, I mean,
what were your parents like?
I don't know what an idyllic childhood looks like because you only know your own childhood, I guess. But I had a lovely childhood, I felt like. But maybe, I mean, as I tell you what happened, you'll probably go like, that doesn't sound so idyllic. That sounds dramatic. It was idyllic. I lived in a cul-de-sac and my neighbours had kids, so we just like played in the streets. And because it was, as I say, the edge of town, there was lots of new houses being built, so we just got to roam around playing in empty blocks and making booby traps in empty, half-built homes, and drawing mobile phones on bits of wood because they didn't exist then. I dreamt of having a horse but knew I'd never have one, so I just pretended to ride around the backyard by myself.
You were a horse girl. That's why
I want to be a horse
We
girl.
always dress you up in your horse dress.
Got quite a long
when
face
the
as well,
Australian wants to take photos of you.
Oh yeah, with the horses. Got 2 dresses with horses, just so you know. But yeah, it was completely joyous, and we lived in, how like throwing, like I'd say like 10 stones throw from the beach. So you could walk to the beach from home, and I could get the bus or ride my bike to school, and it was
just
it
classic.
was classic. Classic Aussie, playing tennis on the road, drawing a tennis court that was like 18 kilometres too big, and so now I can't play on a normal tennis court because the ball goes like into the next suburb. And yeah, so my dad is a chemist, like he formulated sport surfaces. He had a tennis court company, so he was on the road a lot. He was building tennis courts across WA, and my mum was, it was me and I had 2 brothers, and they both went to Guildford Grammar boarding school, and I was, my phone's ringing. I'm 10 years younger than my brother Bruce, and they were at boarding school. I was born. This is an awkward way of telling the story. My mum was kind of, I guess, stay at home, but then she was working for my dad's business, and his business was in Wangara. And my brother Bruce's older brother Robin, also my brother, he had an asthma attack at Guildford Grammar in the stairwell and died when I was just 1. And it's interesting now, I think about my mum at that time, like right on the edge of town, completely isolated. Her whole family, sisters, mum, dad in the UK, no network. Dad's driving around the country building country tennis courts, and her son dies and she's got a newborn. I mean, it must have been hideous, absolutely horrendous. And that's what really strikes me now about our suburbs and or the lack of kind of any community that we build. There's nowhere for young mums to go and just hang out in those kind of outer suburbs. And I can just feel that desperation. It's almost like it's in my DNA because I can understand it through imagining my mum's life at that time. So,
growing up, how did that impact your mum? I mean, what were your...
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I was 14, she got leukemia and then died maybe the next year. And it was like so much of my life is like, I can't really remember that. You're just like trying to get through. And I was young, and I was like, now I feel really ashamed, but at the time I was just so embarrassed of it because I just wanted to be a normal teenager. I didn't want to stand out, and everyone at the school knew, and teachers were coming over and stuff because she was in palliative care at home, which also seems like kind of a nutty thing to do to a child because she was kind of, effectively dying in our lounge. And yeah, I have beautiful memories of my childhood, flashes of kind of holidays in the, we were driving on the back of the ute, and Mum and Dad would drive, and we'd be, having lunch on the side of the road and camping and stuff. But my memories are things like getting bitten by a mozzie on my eye and not being able to see the next day, and like ruin the whole trip, etc. But I never got to talk to my mum about all that stuff because I was a teenager trying to like blend in, and she was probably absolutely petrified. And like, how do you speak to your teenage daughter about that stuff?
About the fact you're
and like, let me try and tell you everything about like motherhood and like, how do you even?
I mean, there's not enough time in a whole lifetime, let alone one that's.
Unfortunately, the thing she said to me, and I just remember this as this was when she was in hospital, was I don't want to give you a compliment because I don't want you to get a big head.
Yeah, you've said that before.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really like
lodged,
shaped. I mean, like many people, spent quite a long time seeing a psychologist. Not about that, something else.
We'll get to that.
And it kind of, she was like, "That's why you don't want to talk about yourself," or I mean, it seems insane that now I'm in this position and I've got a flipping campaign with my name in it, but I was brought up in an old-fashioned way to like not make a fuss and not talk about yourself, not be proud, not celebrate your wins. And I can see like younger generations, even your generation, that are like really confident and proud and like, I fucking did that thing and that's awesome. And I'm like, that's nice.
I'm sorry, you're calling me arrogant.
No, not at all.
I'm joking.
But that's the framing, I guess. Yeah. So that's that.
But so what about your dad? Because you talk about your dad a lot, and you guys still have a nice relationship.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's been kind of influential in your
totally, of course. He's very political, but interestingly, he's less interested in Australian politics. Less interested in Australian politics. He's very interested in British and Middle Eastern politics. He lived in the Middle East for a long time, making airport tarmacs, that sort of thing. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the ground.
Sounds about right, yeah.
The floor, the outdoor floor. And he has been a real supporter, a long, long time supporter and advocate. And I mean, it's probably tracked his whole life of Palestine and the Palestinian like plight. So it's just always been part of my life, and what's happening with the occupation and the kind of outdoor prison that those people were living in until effectively it got bombed to smithereens, and now they're living in that space in a different way, in a more tragic and desperate way. So he. He's part of FOPWA, and he has been at the rallies every Sunday for the last years and years.
So I'm fast forwarding a little bit to London. So we're leaving Molaloo, going to London.
Yeah. So finished school,
a few years
went to uni, finished uni. Yeah.
X, Y, Z. And then you talk a lot about being in London, working for London Underground. You did a bunch of things over there. I'm kind of interested in like your major takeaways. I don't really, no offense, want the play-by-play of your life in London, although I'm sure it was divine.
I don't really remember it. Yeah.
But takeaways? What did you leave with? How long were you there? Why did you come back? And what
13
did you come
years. I left Perth after uni because I was, arrogant enough to, when I finished uni, just to think, I guess I'll just walk into a great job. And then I didn't. And I was like, why does nobody want to hire me? And I was just doing some admin job at Royal Perth Hospital. And I was just doing like 19-year-old or 20-year-old stuff, just going to like Subion and Cottesloe.
This would be the play-by-play.
No, but then I was like, this is desperate. Like, this feels desperate. There's nothing else to do in this time of my life. What the hell? What opportunities are there? And I couldn't see anything, So thought I'll go to traveling for 6 months, and that will resolve it and tell me everything I need to know. I went to England, and 6 months turned into 13 years. And what I learnt was, many things, but the benefits of things like public transport, and I've spoken about that a lot, but the impacts of that, things like that kind of folly and joyousness in the public realm. We don't do that very well here at all. We're very serious and kind of nervous to be silly or like accept that we might be giggly because I think we're so desperate to prove ourselves as serious adult grown up. I don't know. It's like
sensible.
Just
we're very like self-policing or something.
Yeah, and self-policing is something, you know, where if there's a sign to say danger or watch out for the edge or whatever, and I think I used to walk along the Thames and go, oh, I can't believe there's not a fence on the edge here. I could just fall in. And like imagine that being trained that into your head. And I used to, you know, walk on the cobblestones and think like thousands of, you know, like horse and cart and the London fire. And, you know, it's interesting to think of that history. And then there's this thriving, dynamic, not ancient, but very old and very contemporary city that anything could happen. And I loved being anonymous. You could just do whatever you wanted, dress however you wanted, speak how you wanted. I didn't change myself at all. But I didn't come home for years and years. And then I would have come home for a wedding or something. And then there was just that like, really do love it there, you know. And then that as I got older, I was like, whoa, I love it there, you know. And I would feel really emotional kind of taking off on the plane. And then I decided I want to move back. At that time, I'd started a business as a side hobby that then became my full hobby job. And so
Kate Mabel?
No, St. Saviour's hat, my hat business. And it presented opportunities which I couldn't turn down. So I pursued those for a few years, but still wanted to come home. So I came home and opened Kate Mabel, which was the hats and cafe and shop.
And that was in Freo. Why did you choose Freo?
That was in the old Myers building.
Yeah.
As soon as I got back, Freo is the only place I could identify with, having lived in a place that has humans and life and diversity and dynamic and exciting things happening, and I could only see that in Fremantle. And it felt like there was just tons of opportunities and really cool, interesting people doing cool, interesting things, and I just wedged myself in. And then became ran the Many project in the old My building.
Yeah. I want to talk about your husband. At what point did that relationship start? And this is something that, I don't know, most people probably won't know about you. I certainly didn't know about you until a couple of months ago. I reckon we were at an event and something somehow came up about this former husband of yours, and I was like, wait, what? When were you married? And you're like, oh yeah, you didn't.
You're too young to be married.
What do you? And you were like, 18. Oh, yeah, you didn't know about my husband who died? And I was like, sorry, what? And then someone came over and interrupted us, and
I would have just walked away.
You literally walked away, and I was left there like, she had a husband who, and everyone was like, yeah, I didn't know that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to need to follow that up one day. Cool. So I'm following it up right now.
Okay, good. Let's do it live. Yeah, so I met a guy in the UK called Matt, and he and I started the aforementioned hat business, and he was just this most incredible, wild, fun, like bigger than Ben-Hur character, incredibly compassionate and loving and funny man. Am I describing myself? Just kidding. And
I mean, I was thinking that actually.
And
I was like, you and
so we were in a relationship. I don't know how to talk anymore, so just go with it. And fairly quickly into the relationship, it transpired that he was an alcoholic. That's a funny way to describe that, but he's an alcoholic. Is an alcoholic. Was. And I guess I was like, that's all right. You can stop that. That's easy. I'll fix you. And so he went to like residential rehab, but it became quite fraught, up and down, crazy, you know, like he's gone missing, he's smashing glasses to slit his wrists, the police are here, you know, like that kind of stuff. I still persisted in the fix you phase of my life, and I was like, let's move to Australia and everything will be fine there because it's clean and beautiful, and we'll be fine. Everything. And
get out of the big
I guess,
smoke.
For more context, he worked in the TV industry. So he worked in Soho. His first job, he was an editor. He worked on like Big Brother and Harry Potter, and he was just editing overnight. You know, they do, 24-hour operations. His first job was running cocaine for the boss of the companies. You know, like that was his 17-year-old job. So that was just their lives, and they'd get hammered, then they'd get high, and then, you know. And I felt like a total straighty 180 because I was like, I'm not gonna do drugs, but I was like, it's so fun. We're just like running around London and having drinks in the sun, and how joyous. And then I was like, this is problematic. And we moved back here, and we jointly were running my project, many 6160, and through that time, I mean, it was interesting because on the ground floor there was all retail businesses, small businesses having, you know, try opening a business in this space. The first floor was makers and artists, so there was lots of studios. There was, you know, surfboard makers, sculptors, screen printers. There was all sorts of people in this space. Floor above was weird odds and sods. Anyway, so we were like cleaning the toilets every week and making sure the doors were locked at night, and imagine a 20,000 square meter building full of 20 or 30 something creatives. It was quite chaotic, and shit was happening, and blah blah blah. During that time, he tried meth, and then he was probably really ADHD and stuff, and actually I didn't know he was using, but he was suddenly really efficient, effective, and like able to do stuff, you know, like,
right.
But of course he was addicted and was losing his mind, like really publicly losing his mind. And it got really, really bad, to the point where like I was calling the police on him, and he was like trashing the building. Like it was complete chaos. And I was living through this hell. At the time, I was like, I've got to be there. I didn't take a single day off. I was like 7 days a week. And at that time, we were living in freaking Motherloo at my dad's house because we had no money. So we're driving an hour every morning and night, getting in, because we had a fucking cafe as well. So we were like opening the cafe, having to buy milk and make sure the fridge was working. There's like thousands of money going through the till. I'm like, where's all the money going? And I was so stupid and naive. I mean, not stupid and naive. I just didn't know. I didn't know that. I didn't even know what meth was. You're not the only person that's ever happened to. Yeah. He eventually got arrested. I mean, there was things like I got to work one day and I was like, I don't know where Matt's just gone. Matt's gone missing. And he'd gone to Bali. Just got to the airport, hammered, got on a flight. And then I got a call from the federal police saying, your husband, you know, like just so much stuff. And I was just like running on complete adrenaline, and I didn't know whatever. I was just like existing, you know, and running a business, trying to manage this building and deal with the tenants and find new tenants to move in and deal with tenants moving out and all this stuff. And he ended up going to residential rehab. And it was funny because he would come back on weekends for visits and stuff after a while. And because like customers absolutely friggin' loved him. He was like the salesman. He was so gregarious and he would sell anything to anyone. And he was so warm and generous and everything like that. And he would go, oh, they'd be like, where have you been? I've not seen you for ages. He goes, I've been in rehab. And they're like, oh, what have you had, an injury or something? And he's like, no, for drugs and alcohol. And people were like, oh, what? And then it became really apparent to me that people really live their lives with addictions, because so many people come to me or him and say, I'd really love to talk to you because my son's going through this, or my daughter, this thing happened, or my neighbour. And they were desperate for any insight or advice or anything that they could learn about this thing that was pervasive. It was through our community, you know. And at that time as well, on that upper floor, there was lots of young men in their 20s and 30s. And at that time I was like, we have got a massive mental health problem with men, young men. They were like, didn't know how to communicate aside from getting drunk. They were using way too many drugs, losing their minds, crying, like coming and sit, like I became a kind of weird mother hen character. And it was just, I was like, this country is absolutely screwed because no one is talking about this or dealing with it. Anyway, I'm going granular, but to come to the dramatic end, his mum and dad were over one time from the UK, and we were in Roto, and basically he went missing one night. There was this kind of big blow up where he was kind of trying to like poke his mum and dad to like snapping at him and just like saying, you're a horrible son, or, you know, that he was really...
Right.
He was just trying to get something, you know, don't know what. And he just kind of stormed off, and he didn't come home, and I was like, it's fine, he'll just be...
doing him.
Sleeping on the beach or something. And then next night, I was like, he's going to come back and we'll be fine. Then I was like, oh, he would have just gone on the ferry and come back here. And then we got back and he wasn't here. And I was like, we got to go to the cops, I guess, because he's got no money, or, you know, like
he's a missing person.
He's a missing person. But I just assumed he was on the ferry, you know. And I mean, it was another pretty horrific time, because
obviously, yeah,
because it had because he'd gone missing and he was an alcoholic. Initially, the police were like, "We are not going to spend a second on this." And then eventually, a policeman who I knew he'd been on holidays. He came back and he was like, "I just read a report that Matt's missing. What the hell?" And I was like, "I know." And he was like, "What's happening?" You know, he couldn't, because he knew Matt. And then it was too late to do a search of the island. Like SCS wouldn't do anything because it'd been too long, because they only spend time looking for potential missing alive people.
Right.
So I arranged, I mean, this is so nuts as well. I arranged a whole search of the island with grids and teams and
the community.
It was like 100 people came over and like literally walked the island looking for a dead body or a body or him or anything, you know.
Did you ever find him?
Didn't find anything then. Maybe a year later or a bit longer, I got a call from the police randomly saying, we've just had a call from someone in Queensland who's seen the missing persons ad in Queensland, saying that they were on Rottnest the night that he went missing, and they had a drink with him on the beach, and then he said he was going to swim back. And I mean, that's classic Matt. He would just be like, I'm going to swim back to Freo, no worries. He always wanted to run a swim, so he would have gone, no worries, I'll just swim over, you know. Flash forward another period, I got a call, and at this point I was like, I need to resolve this in some way, because I've got like a mortgage with him, and I've got, you know, like bank accounts and a business, and I'm paying tax, and I didn't, you know, like I don't know how to deal with this, and it's a really weird situation. And just by chance, the universe, a policeman called me and said, we're going to open a coronial inquiry into this incident. And a period of time passed, and the coroner determined effectively he was lost at sea and dead. Which at the time, it was kind of a resolution, but of course it's not a resolution when you don't really, you know, like there's no bodies, you can have a funeral, and but it was interesting. During that time, I just felt like I was in weird grief and strange relief and like just like all different emotions, but I felt kind of invincible. Like I could just walk through fire, and I was like, I don't care if I get stabbed in the, you know, like it.
Meaning because
I just didn't
it was so bad.
I just
what
felt
had happened
like,
to you.
it was like, I don't know, no one can do anything to me now that would be like I've gone through everything now, you know, like I've ticked everything off.
So how long ago is this? I mean, we're talking
like 9 years, eight.
I mean, it's not that
7,
long ago.
Yeah.
And since then you're sort of living the same life that you were living then, which is quite remarkable, really.
I mean, I felt because he was such a person who gave so much and contributed so much, I was like, I need to live on his behalf and do stuff on his behalf and try and fix stuff on his behalf. And maybe I haven't quite got there, but perhaps, recently I've been thinking, well, maybe this is one of those, there's moments where we can try and help fix this little mess that we find ourselves in.
I was just telling you just before we started recording that when we were running the state campaign, I heard from someone that they had heard from someone that they were at work and they saw some people from one of the major parties sitting around talking about you and our campaign, and they had a police report there about Matt's death. And they had reported it back to this friend of ours who then told me because, they obviously thought that was pretty...
Dodge.
Yeah, dodge.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. So I felt like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
I literally just told you that.
It feels really invasive, but, if you think about it, of course, they're going to look at anything they can dig up, I suppose. I mean, I guess I'm grateful that they didn't... It would be pretty low to bring that up in the press. I mean...
For sure.
Yeah. And they made that call, obviously. But
I guess I'm getting at, like, it's interesting that when I heard that, I was like, God, that's awful. And like, why would you, you don't really want that to enter the kind of conversation. But now we're talking about it on a podcast as part about, your campaign. For the
Radical transparency with Kate.
I think it's, worth knowing about you. Like, I mean, your story, it's, a lot of bad stuff's happened and you're,
a lot of absolutely incredible stuff's happened. And I am white and middle class and well educated, and I've had opportunities,
But it gives you perspective, I suppose.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh, I've not inherited wealth, and I have a small business that my accountant says every year, are you happy because my cleaner makes more money than you? Like I've not paid $1 for my HEX. I haven't got a new car. I just, like I'm completely regular. I'm not supported by something. I don't have a safety net. And yes, I know what death is like. Yes, I know what cancer's like. I know what addiction's like. I know what it's like if you don't have a regular income, because I don't. And all of those things are very helpful when you're talking to people just like you who are also going through those things and think, I better not buy the big packet of toilet paper. I'll just get the couple because I can't really afford to get that.
I want to...
That was a nice example. The toilet paper one was another thing. That was, illustrated my point.
You had to pull
nicely.
something out. And thanks for sharing. It's nice to learn about you.
Will I regret this? Potentially, but
I was going to say,
why bother? Well, what's the point of keeping? Like it's real.
If you go enough pages in the Google search on Kate Hulett, you do get there.
The West are really trying to.
Let's just go there.
Every year I get a call from missing persons going, "Do you want to do a story?" Oh, not every year. That's a lie. But at the beginning, I did.
And now I've just learned everything about you, which is fun. But I was thinking, people often ask me, "Oh, how did you and Kate end up doing the campaign together? Like, how do you end up working for Kate?" And someone asked me it on the state election day. They were like, "Oh, how'd you get the job?" And I was like, "Oh, Kate just asked me," and I said yes. And then with not even thinking like, oh, they're like looking for more of an answer of like, what? Who are you? What's your background? How did you?
Well, I worked in Sydney for the campaign, I guess.
But I just thought it was funny that like our relationship is.
And we should do an episode where I ask you about you. But
please no.
When it's
not that interesting. Really.
It comes to the why is Emma working on this? I was like, oh my God, we need someone. And I sat with my hands in my head thinking, who is it going to be? Who's it going to be? Oh my God. And I kind of was going through the Rolodex in my mind. And our mutual friend Mary said, how about Emma? And I was like, oh my Christ, she's the perfect person. Because I needed someone kind of robotically smart. Like, you've got a computer brain and you're...
Much harder to take that, actually.
Positive. That's a compliment. And able to manage lots of people and lots of emotions. And of course, when you're working with groups of volunteers, there's many personalities and many different levels of skills and contribution. And there's probably no one else in the country that would be able to weave them together like a beautiful embroidered blanket like you.
That's really nice.
And that's why you're here. And, you know, I wouldn't have...
Thanks for spooking me.
I wouldn't have done federal had it not been for you to say yes as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of had to make that decision together.
It was like
And now we're one person.
Now we're codependent.
I had a dream that we got married a few nights ago.
And today I was like, my tummy hurts, I'm anxious. And Emma's like, me too. And like, good, okay, at least we're connected in all of our physiological...
Yeah, we've both been feeling like a deep anxiety. I feel like it's coming through in the episode, like that whole thing.
I mean, we've just been talking about 3 layers of death. Yeah. So it's not like...
But why have we been feeling so anxious today? We've been anxious.
I mean, I've been anxious since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, true. I mean, yeah. I feel like the first few weeks of the state campaign, we both were like churning stomachs every day, all day.
That never finished.
But I feel like maybe we'll get out of that. No, okay.
We've got 5 weeks of crisis bodily functions.
So maybe tomorrow we'll talk about what we were feeling anxious about today. Maybe. Or tomorrow something else will happen and we'll have new...
I mean, the hint is, I don't know what a federal MP does. Okay, plot twist.
But we might go and do some Googling.
Okay. I'm just going to read this out to you as well. Okay. This is the last thing on my Google search. What do members of parliament do? And then this is weird because the answer is, hi, Adam, thank you for your question. This is on the internet. Senators and members of the House of Reps work long hours at Parliament House. I think it might be for children because that's a weird thing to say to grown-ups. The main role of senators and members of the House of Representatives is put forward the views of the people who live or vote in their electorate, their constituents.
I reckon we should finish the episode here because that line kind of speaks for itself after yesterday's episode.
This was the worst episode of a political podcast or talking about a campaign, and I apologise to everybody.
Why? Because we haven't talked about the campaign at all.
Yeah, because you just had like trauma dump.
I know, but like...
You've had the trauma response.
What they've just witnessed is the act of campaigning, in fact. No.
Someone dreamt that they were campaigning for us last night outside of the election.
I saw that.
And
very cute.
I thought, subconscious, that's the next frontier.
Should we wrap it?
Yes.
Please.
I don't know if it's going to be relevant for this episode, so we can cut this bit, but if not, Mummikin Spender generously let us use their music.
That's right.
At the beginning and the end.
Which is really sweet.
I mean, I'm overwhelmed. That will make me cry, the fact that she's been so generous.
With her music.
Not the death of my mum, but oh my God, thank you for giving us the music. I can't help but joke about it. I'm sorry, it's trauma.
You're forgiven.
Push it down.
You're forgiven. I accept you. Just as you are.
Cut.
Now it's just up to the people of Fremantle to do the same.
Yeah. Vote 1, Kate for Fremantle. The election is on 3rd
All right,
of May.
so we'll see everyone tomorrow. Same time. You're about to cry now, so we should...
I'm not going to cry. This is my happy face. Bye.
Love you. See you later.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Authorised by K. Hulett, 106 High Street Mall, Fremantle.